Hello and welcome back to the Success Bureau, where we break down the world's greatest books from ancient wisdom to modern strategy. Today's book is The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, a short, often overlooked book that quietly became one of the most influential texts in the history of personal development. It's not flashy, it doesn't rely on complicated theories, but it's direct, deliberate, and surprisingly powerful. And in this edition from Capstone Press, they also include The Science of Being Great, so we'll touch on that too. Both books are built on the same core idea, that greatness and wealth aren't accidents or privileges, they're outcomes of specific ways of thinking and acting, and that those ways can be learned, applied, and repeated. Now, this isn't the usual financial advice. Wattles isn't talking about budgeting or stock markets. He's arguing that wealth is created through alignment with thought, purpose, and action. That it's a science not in the sense of formulas and lab coats, but in the sense that if you follow certain principles, you get reliable results. He believed the universe was abundant, that there's more than enough wealth for everyone, and that by thinking and acting in what he calls a certain way, you move into harmony with that abundance. That's where the shift happens. It's not about competition, it's not about hoarding, it's about creation. Wallace D. Wattles was born in 1860 and lived through a time of serious social and economic change in America. He started life in poverty, worked manual jobs, and struggled for years before discovering the principles that would change his fortunes. In his 30s, he held a position in the Methodist Church, likely as a minister, and became deeply interested in Christian socialism, spiritual development, and what later became known as the New Thought movement. His ideas combined religious belief, scientific thinking, and a fiercely practical mindset. He believed success could be learned, that there was a science to getting rich, just like there's a science to engineering or chemistry. And he wasn't speaking to the elite, he was speaking to ordinary people who wanted more from life, but didn't know how to get there. In fact, he said, life has advanced so far and become so complex that even the most ordinary man or woman requires a great amount of wealth in order to live in a manner that even approaches completeness. To understand the science of getting rich is therefore the most essential of all knowledge. That quote hits even harder today. With rising costs, pressure to succeed, and constant comparison, it's easy to feel like wealth is out of reach. But Wattles believed the opposite. He believed anyone could achieve wealth, if they follow the right process. Now, I'll be honest, some of the language feels a bit dated, and parts of the book lean heavily on early New Thought ideas like spirit, energy, and divine intelligence. That being said, it's a pretty easy read, much easier to read than some of the other early New Thought books like the Master Key System, and there's a very practical, very grounded philosophy of action. It's about clarity, focus, belief, and consistency. Wattles' work inspired a whole generation of thinkers from Napoleon Hill to Bob Proctor, and it laid the foundation of much of what we now call manifestation, abundance mindset, and even modern goal-setting theory. But this book isn't about sitting around wishing for wealth. It's about disciplined thought, aligned action, and a refusal to be distracted by fear, doubt, or envy. And it really is just as relevant today as it was when Wattles first published it in 1910. So in this episode, we're going to unpack the core ideas from The Science of Getting Rich, as well as a few insights from The Science of Being Great. We'll explore the mindset behind wealth creation, the habits that support it, and specific steps Wattle outlines for thinking and acting in a certain way that attracts success. Let's get into it. 1. Think in a certain way. Wattles opens with what might be the most important idea in the book. The way you think shapes your outcomes, not just vaguely, but in a very specific, causal way. He says, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imagined by the thought. He's not talking about vague positivity. This isn't about wishful thinking, it's about mental clarity. He's saying you must hold a clear vision of what you want, and you must hold on to it with unshakable belief. Not hope, not doubt, no drifting, absolute certainty. And most importantly, you must hold that vision without contradiction. No back and forth. No, I want to be rich one day and then money doesn't matter the next. Consistent, focused thought. Here's a practical tip. Set aside 5 minutes each morning to visualize exactly what you want, clearly and specifically. See it in your mind and then feel gratitude as if you already have it. Then go on with your day with that image quietly guiding your actions. Wattles would say, the universe begins rearranging itself to match that frequency. 2. Act in a certain way. Thinking is only half of it. Wattles makes it clear, without action, you get nowhere. He says, by thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. And here's the thing. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions. You don't need a massive plan. You just need to act now, where you are, with what you've got. Do everything you can today, but do it efficiently and do it with faith. He warns against hesitation, worry, procrastination. The how isn't your concern. That unfolds as you move. Your job is to act. Here's a practical tip. Take the phrase efficient action seriously. At the end of each day, ask, did I do everything I could do today with excellence toward the vision I'm holding? If not, where did I hesitate or get distracted? Adjust tomorrow accordingly. 3. Give more in use value than you take in cash value. This is one of Wattles' most practical and powerful teachings, and it's often overlooked. He says, give every man more in use value than you take from him in cash value. In plain terms, always give more than you charge. That doesn't mean underselling yourself. It means the person who buys from you, or works with you, or watches your content, should always walk away feeling like they got a great deal. It's not just a feel-good idea, it's a competitive advantage. When you create value that exceeds the cost, people return. They talk. Your reputation grows. That's how long-term wealth is built. Here's a practical tip. Whether you're selling a product, offering a service, or showing up to a job, ask, how can I go just 5% beyond what's expected? That 5% compounds. It creates loyalty, respect, and leverage. 4. Gratitude aligns you with the creative forces of the universe. For Wattles, gratitude isn't just a nice idea, it's essential. He says it keeps you aligned with the source of abundance, that a grateful mind is constantly connected to opportunity. The grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best, therefore it tends to become the best. When you're grateful, you don't act from scarcity or panic. You stop obsessing over what's missing and start responding to what's working. That energy, according to Wattles, keeps you in flow with wealth, creativity, and power. Here's a practical tip. Each morning or evening, write down 3 specific things you're genuinely grateful for. Not just big wins, but small details. And when you feel doubt creeping in, pause or focus on those things. Gratitude is a reset button. 5. Never act from a competitive mindset, only from a creative one. This is a big one. Wattles believed that the idea of competition is a trap. If you think someone else's success limits your own, you're cutting yourself off from the abundance of the universe. He wrote, you must get rid of the thought of competition. You are to create, not to compete for what is already created. This is radical, even today. He's saying don't chase others, don't worry about rivals, focus on building, on improving, on being of value. That's what brings wealth, not beating someone else to it. Here's a practical tip. When you feel comparison creeping in, ask yourself, what can I create today that I couldn't yesterday? That's where your power is, and it pulls you out of the scarcity trap. Greatness is a choice. Wattles expands on his earlier ideas in The Science of Being Great and makes a bold claim that greatness isn't something you're born with. It's a result of thinking highly, acting deliberately, and refusing to settle for smallness. He says, nothing is impossible to the man who can will and do. Faith can remove mountains, and faith and purpose will remove obstacles. He teaches that greatness begins with thought, choosing to see yourself as a being of potential, acting with purpose, and expecting great outcomes. Here's a practical tip. Start affirming your potential daily, not as cheesy hype, but as focused intent. I will rise to meet the level of my purpose. I will act like the person I'm becoming. Small affirmations repeated daily become beliefs. Beliefs become actions. So there it is, The Science of Getting Rich, along with The Science of Being Great. 2 short, sharp, unapologetically practical books that have shaped the personal development world more than most people realise. Wattles isn't asking you to hustle harder, he's asking you to think differently, to get clear on what you want, to act with purpose, and to live in alignment with those desires, regardless of setbacks, noise, or comparison. There's no magic trick here, but there is a process. And if you follow it, Wattles believes the results are inevitable. Not easy, but inevitable. And what I love about this book is how clear and confident it is. Wattles doesn't hedge, he doesn't complicate, he just lays it out. Think in a certain way, act in a certain way, do more than you're paid for, do it well, and keep going. Simple doesn't mean shallow, it means focused. And if it ever feels too abstract, remember this image that Earl Nightingale used to share. You can't say to the stove, give me heat and then I'll add the wood. You have to put the wood in first. That's what this book teaches. Provide value, act with intention, fuel the fire. Then you'll see the results. If you've enjoyed this breakdown and want to explore more ideas from the world's most powerful and practical books, hit the like button and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this one, you might enjoy my video on Think and Grow Rich. I'll leave a link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.